You do.
Okay, hello everyone who is already watching. I have no clue if this is all the way it should be, but I see some chat window, I see my screen, I see audio running, so I guess you can hear me. And welcome to my first Blender is not that difficult live stream. And this is a test, as I said, because I have no clue how all these things work, and I just want to find out and maybe uh, give a few things of a few words of advice about Blender at the same time. So if you have questions, just post them in the chat if you can. If you can't, and you have my Telegram link, then you can just post the question on Telegram. Okay. Okay, let's see if we can get the audio to work. My software says it's all fine. That's what I hope. But I can't be sure unless I get feedback from you guys if you can hear me. I am transmitting audio. At least that's what my thing says. You heard my intro. Wolf heard my intro. So yeah, that's good because I only just started talking again. So I was looking at the software if everything was set up fine. So I assume that's all right then. Yeah, okay, that's good. It was probably just latency. I set it up to high latency and highest quality for the graphics. So you can see what I am doing, and there is not like just some pixel soup on the screen. Because if you could set it to low latency, so the chat and the audio is more in sync. But I think that seeing what's happening on the screen is more important. So what you can see here is just a little setup. You can see this. And this is basically what it looks like in Blender without any bells and whistles. I just thought that was funny to see what the original material is and how it will be after you render it. So let me stop that for a moment. There we go. All right, let me just switch over to my streaming setup. Don't need to save this. Okay. Right, so this is what you see when you open Blender for the first time, and or not really. This is what you see when you open Blender for the first time. Basically, this is slightly altered because I have some space over here that is normally not there, and it's a bit customized to my needs, but the basics are the same. So let me just start my keyboard display. So you can see what I'm doing here. So, right. So if you have specific questions, something that you try to do in Blender and it didn't work, and you want to know how to do it, then just post it in the chat, and I will try to get to it as soon as I can. Otherwise, yeah, maybe I'll just show you a few basic techniques how to edit, how to work with something like this, the default cube. This is called the default cube, by the way. So if someone in Blender, in the Blender community, tells you delete the default cube, this is it. So the thing that you see the first time you start up Blender. Okay, and let me just make it a bit more personal. There I am. So and now you know why I kept a bit of room down here in the lower left, so you can see me doing stuff. All right. So I try to keep an eye on the chat. I can so I can answer you quickly. Delay is about a minute. So if you say something in chat, it might take a while until I see it, and when I answer it, it might be about 60 seconds until you can hear it. All right, so just the absolute basics. When you start Blender, this is what you see. And to move around in the viewport, this is called the viewport 3D view. You basically, oh right, let me just show you down on the lower right, version 2.91 alpha. You probably should download the 2.91 version if you're not looking for the most stable experience, but the newest version of Blender. If you want the most stable because you have some production critical stuff, then you probably wouldn't look at this live stream. And you would use the version 2.83 LTS. Because LTS is long-term support version of Blender, it has 2 years of support, so that's what you have and what you would use. Right, so absolute basics. Working in the viewport in Blender is very easy. You can scroll with your mouse wheel back and forth to zoom in and zoom out. If you're on a laptop, it might be a bit tricky to get to all these hotkeys and shortcuts I'm going to show you, but there are always alternatives. Like for zooming in and out, you have on the right side here, you have the camera zooms. Just click it and then move the mouse back and forth, and you can zoom. It's a bit less intuitive, but at least you can do it even if you don't have a mouse with scroll wheel. Then next is turning the camera around the object you're looking at. You click and hold the middle mouse, and you can just drag it to orbit around the object, or orbit around the point that you clicked. There are a few settings that can change the behavior of the viewport and the mouse. So if you want to have it behaving in a different way, you can do that here, but that's something. If you can just ask me how to do it and I will show you. But this is my setup. I have it set to orbit around the active object, or the point I clicked, and it's basically on the input side. So what I have is here on the mouse, I have my, oh no, it's not on the input side. Yeah, navigation side, right. So I'm still stuck in the old Blender 2.79 thing on the preference, but here it is. So you have auto perspective, auto depth. This auto depth is what I have here. I click here and it stays on that object that I clicked on, and I can just drag it around. If you don't want that and just orbit around the point in space, you can just uncheck the depth and then it would do that. Right. Anything else here? You can just play with the settings and see what they do. So I see Paul. Hello, Paul. So next up, what can we do? What else can we do? So yeah, This is orbiting, and this is zooming, and there's the next is panning. You can pan left and right, up and down by holding the shift key and then the middle mouse. You can see in the lower left of my screen, you can see my screencast keys, where it tells you which key or which mouse button I pressed so to get the function that you can see on the screen. So shift middle mouse, and then you can just move it around, panning left and right, up and down. And with that, you can basically move everywhere in your viewport and look at your model from all sides, which right now is still a cube, and we need to change that. In Blender, you have two main, in Blender modeling, this is called hard surface modeling because it's just surfaces like this. You have two modes where you usually work in, which is, this is the object mode. You can see it in the upper left of the screen, there it says object mode, where you can select and move and edit whole objects. So it is like this cube is one object. You can select it like this with the left mouse button. And if you want to change the object, how it is set up, like the mesh of the object, you can do that in edit mode. And you can either go up here and then just click edit mode, and then you can see it changes the display a bit. Or you can use the shortcut hotkey. This is very important for Blender, and you will see that a lot. Blender uses shortcuts, hotkeys, all the time. You can do most of the things without them, but I absolutely recommend just learning the hotkeys for it. So you can just push tab key, and that will get you into edit mode from object mode. You can go back and forth, object and edit mode. And like that, you can quickly change to whatever you need to do. And now you can see, I'm just zooming here, you can see the cube is made up of 8 vertices, so it's 8 points in space, which you can basically, by the way, see in the lower right in the status bar. It says verts 0 of 8, so I have none selected, and it's 8 vertices in this object. You can just click him. Just click close to them. You don't have to hit them exactly. Just click close to them, and Blender will try to figure out which one you mean. And you can select them like this. Very simple stuff. And if you want to move them around, you can do that on the left side. Here is the toolbar. I can just expand it a bit. There we go. You can see all the names of the tools. This is a new addition to Blender, which makes it a lot easier for newcomers to use. You can just click on move, and then you grab basically all the arrows, and you can move the vertex that you chose in space. You can look around it, move it in space, move it in space. You can see Blender's axes. Basically, it's the x-axis is the red one, the y-axis is the green one, and the z-axis or z is the blue one. Some software does it differently, so some have x and y and z swapped, but this is how Blender does it. So if you want to work in Blender, this is your setup. So you can grab the arrow and just pull it up and down. At some point, this will get a bit clumsy, because it's always like hit the arrow and then pull it up and down, hit the arrow and pull it up and down. You can't really position this stuff intuitively. So what we usually do is not grabbing the arrows exactly, but just grab it in the middle, and then you can move it in the view plane. So basically, where you are looking at, and move the vertex around that point in space where you're looking. So if you move it around like this, you can pull it to the left. You can see where it ends up. This is the easier freeform way to move it. It's not as precise, but usually as an artist, you don't really care about precision. You care about it that looks good, and this is how you make it look good. So you can move it freely in space. So and this is the first hotkey you should learn. If you hover over the tool here and it says move, it tells you move selected items. Shortcut is G. The Shift spacebar is a special menu that you can call up, and G is the actual shortcut. So Shift space shows you all the possible shortcuts, and don't get confused. Just look at the move thing. Just move G. All right. So if you click on one and say G, it locks you in move. So you don't have to click or hold the mouse button or anything. Just push the G button, and then you can move the vertex around to the place where you want it. Then with the left mouse button, you can just basically set it up there, and then it will stay. If you move it in arrow, just G, and you move it and you think, nah, that's not what I want, just push the right mouse button and it snaps back to where it was before. Of course, you can also, if you moved it and then decide, nah, that's not the right thing, let me just put that away. You can do Control Z and undo. So undo is a thing in Blender. Even if some people say the undo in Blender is terrible, it works. Okay, so this is the easy part. You just grab something and move it around. Our cats are excited. Okay. What if you want to move more than one vertex? There are many ways to do that. I'll show you one easy way, and then the more complex ways later. You can just click one of the vertices, but you can also just shift and click two of them, right? Or 3, 4, as many as you like, and shift click to deselect them again. So if I just want to move these two vertices, select them, move around at the same time. Same with the G key, move them around, step them where you want them. Most of the time you wouldn't do it for vertices like this, because they are connected by an edge. So you have these vertices, then you have edges that connect vertices, and you have faces that are surrounded by edges. And you can select each of them as a type. You can say here in the upper left, you see this button. It says vertex select. So this is the mode that we are in right now. You can select vertices. And you can switch to edge select mode. And you can select whole edges and move them around, which is the same thing as if you selected both vertices, these two, and then move them around. And with shift, you can again multi-select edges, them around. Third mode is face select mode. It's here. Click that to face select, and then you can just select the whole face and grab it. What I have done is I added this little dot in the center of the face, so I can see that I am in face select mode. That is not something that is default in Blender. So if you're wondering, this is an overlay that I enabled, which is on the side here, this overlay button. And it says, let me just put it up here, it says center. That's what I enabled. Usually it looks like this. And has no dot in the middle. So it makes it, for me, it makes it a bit harder to see where the faces are. That's why I have this enabled. Does nothing to the function, it's all the same. It's just visual, so you can see what happens. So, as I said, Blender is full of shortcuts and hotkeys. That also holds true for selection of the modes you're in. So if you want to select vertices, you don't always have to go up here and select vertex mode, or for edges, edge mode and all that stuff, because that's really, really tedious, because you have to go up there, click here, go down here, find the vertex again, and then start to move it. You can just push 1 for vertex mode, 2 for edge mode, 3 for face mode. That makes it much easier. You can see it up here in the left, changing when I push 1, 2, and 3. So if you see me just switching modes like this, and then back here and just grabbing this, move it here, and then grabbing this and move it here, that's how I do it. It's just 1, 2, and 3. If you want to get fancy, you can enable all of them at the same time with Shift 1, Shift 2, Shift 3, and then you can basically grab whatever you want and hope that Blender figures out what you mean. That's a bit yeah, optimistic. Let's just put it that way. Blender doesn't always get what you want. So I would absolutely recommend just switching by hand. Okay, now rather, I talked a lot about selecting stuff and moving stuff around, but with the cube alone, with the box alone, we can't do much. So we should make something out of this box. And let me move this text around a bit, because there you go. With the tools display, it always gets obscured. Right, so let us make something out of this cube. Go back to the standard default cube if I can. If I can't, I'll just add a new one. Yeah, okay, I can't. Okay, then let's just learn how to delete and add a new object. Okay, let's go back to object mode. Press the delete key. And you can add a new cube. This is the same thing that we had before. It's just a cube, and it will come up in the middle of the scene, basically. You can see in the middle of the screen this this lifesaver ring type of thing, this red and white thing. This is the 3D cursor. It is a point in space that you can choose. You can say, okay, this is my point in space, which is important to me. That's where a new object will be spawning. So if I press the cube here, add mesh cube, it comes up exactly where this 3D cursor is. And that by default, it is in the center of your Blender space, which you can see right here. You know, the axis, and this is where it comes up. Okay, well, how can we modify this box to be something more interesting? Of course, this depends on what you want to build. And I thought, let's just build a very, very simple shape so you can see how all these things work. And let's just build a shape like a house, right? With walls and like a pointy roof and maybe some windows and all that stuff. So we can do all this with this cube. Let's start with making the cube a bit wider. Because a house is usually not box. It's usually wider than it's tall. If you have a one family household, of course, if you want to build a skyscraper, you would stretch it in the z-axis. So let's just make it a bit wider. To do that, we go back into edit mode and select faces. Grab maybe this face and just move it here. This is a bit skinny, so let's move this one, or let's move in a positive, so you can always see where the arrow is pointing. Is the positive numbers, and the other side is the negative number. So push it. Oh, grab the wrong face. You can see right mouse button, this one. So push it over here. This is not bad. If we want to have a roof on this thing, we can't just move it up, because we would just scale the whole thing up, but we want to add a roof. So how can we do that? The easiest way to do it is to extrude the face. So we get this face and then make a new face on top of this one and connecting it to the object. And this is what you can do with the extrude tool. Let me just look here, extrude region. You can see it in the toolbar. And there's this little plus icon that comes up. You can grab this and just pull it up. What you see now is that you basically split the whole thing in half. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and on the other side 7, 8 faces instead of 4. Which gives us a way to manipulate these faces independently. And this one, which is the most important one for us right now. So if we want to make a roof, a pointy roof out of this, you can grab this edge. You can see we're still in extrude mode. We don't want that. We're going to back to move mode and just move it over here. This is half the way there. Then grab that one, move that up to here. Like this. more or less symmetrical. There is a way to make it perfectly symmetrical, and we get to that, but this is just to basically show you how the basics work. It looks a bit tall, so we go here to the face mode and push it down a bit. So this is okay, I think. And this is how easy it is to add geometry and make something out of a box. Now we have a house shape. It's not really a house yet, but it is the basic shape. How to make it more interesting? Moving edges around. Let me move this over here. Let me move that over to here. And this is already a bit more interesting than before. And again, if you have questions or if you have suggestions what I should do with this cube, just put it in the chat and I will try to show you how it works. Okay, this is all nice, but it is a bit boring, right? A house has a door, a house has windows, and of course colors, textures, all that stuff. We're going to look at that also if we have the time, if you have the stamina to look at this stream all the time. Okay, so how do we make a door? So basically, if we want to have a door here right in the middle, how can we do that? Basically, what we want to do is have this face and cut a hole inside here. There are, again, many ways to do that, and people disagree on what the correct way is and what this word will come up a lot, topology, what good topology is and how you are supposed to do it. The way I think is the best is to cut the whole object in half or in thirds and then play around with the cuts that you made. That's how most people do it that are preparing objects and models for rendering, where it is not that important how many cuts and how many vertices you have, but it's more important that things are precise and look really good. For games, you might want to try and save polygons so you don't have as many cuts and as many vertices, but that's not really important for rendering. And in this situation, this is low poly. So we have only few polygons. So this is fine. We can just add more. So how can we cut it up so we can add a door? There is a thing called loop cut. You will see that all the time. This is one of the most important tools that you can have for modeling in 3D. You activate the loop cut tool, then you go here. Let me just and you can go here and you can see where the cut is going to be. Just move the mouse around, don't do anything else, just move the mouse around to an edge of your choice. And you can see it will cut it in the center of this loop. A loop is basically something that goes all around your object. It's like these faces all around your object. If you have your topology right, as I said, this word will come up a lot, then it will go basically in a straight line around your object. Right here you can see is a loop. Here you can see is a loop. There's another one. You can choose which one you want to use. I want to use this one because I want to put a door here in the middle. So, but if I cut it here, then I can do more cuts, but this is not exactly how a door works, right? This is a bit thin, and the door needs a bit more space to work. So this is not exactly what I want, but it is halfway there. I could just put another one next to it, right, like this one. So now I have two of them. And I could cut this open here and say this is my door. It's a very big door. It's a very ugly door. But I could do that and just say, yeah, right, this is as good as I can get it. But you know, we can do better. Let me just undo this. Go back to the loop cut tool. And then roll my mouse wheel. Let me just... it's right. Let me just do it with a shortcut here. You can see it has a shortcut. It always goes away. There's the Control R shortcut. That is how you activate this loop cut tool. Let me go back to move and then Control R. This is with the mouse wheel, you can choose how many cuts you want to have. And this is where it really gets interesting. So I need 2 because a door like a left and a right edge to it, so I need 2 of them, and I can place them. And now with the shortcut, I can move this around. I can slide it back and forth, and until I'm happy. And once I'm happy, I'll just put it there. So now it's still too wide, and now we can use a tool that we haven't seen before, the scaling tool. So you can't only move things around and extrude new faces. You can change the size of anything that you can see here. So if you have a face, let me select a face like this one, you can resize this face. There is the scale operator right here, and you can change the size of it. Right? You can make it taller, you can make it less tall. Again, right mouse button to undo this. You can grab it here, make it wider and make it smaller, or here. In this case, of course, it's a face, and it's a flat face right at the axis, and this will have no effect because it is infinitely thin, so you can't stretch it in that direction. But you can do that for this face, for example, in the Y direction, because this has some width to it in the Y direction, so you can change the size here. What we want to do is a door. So how do we make this skinnier, thinner, so we can have a door shape here? To do that, we would just select all of it. This is a bit tedious, but it gets better, believe me. So you have all of that and can resize it like this. This is the most visual way to do it. It's not the easiest way or the most efficient way, but it's the most visual way. So if you just need to know how to do it, this is a good way. Just mark all the faces and you can slide them like this and then let go. This is more like a door. It's still a bit wide, but we can change that. To do it a bit easier, you don't have to click here and then shift click. There is an easier way, of course, because this is something that comes up all the time, selecting a whole loop around an object. This is what you can do with modifiers. So you have you have on your keyboard the Alt key and the Shift key and the Control key, which are modifiers. And you can use them for selecting things as well. So if you want to select a whole loop of faces all around your object, you can go to the edge, one of the edges here, and then press Alt and left click. And let me just hide this. Alt left mouse, you can see it there. This will automatically select the ring around your object, or the loop around your object. That's exactly what you need. Let me just undo that. Okay, right. I did something there that I didn't explain to you, like deselecting everything or selecting everything. You can see it on the lower left. It's the A key, A for all. And double tap A is deselect all, or Alt A works as well. So you can just select things here and then Alt A deselects everything. A selects everything. So let's select this and then we can scale this again the way that we did before. And of course, there's a hotkey for that, for scaling. Make it easier. And it is very intuitive, is S for scale. So you have now grab, G for grab, and S for scale. You can see if you just scale, it will scale it like this. If I grab it in the middle, it will just scale it around the center. And that is not exactly good for a door. We want just to scale it on the x-axis like this one. You can do that as well with the hotkeys. If you just tell Blender which axis you mean. So the red axis is the X. You want to scale along the X, then you just scale and push the X key. Then it will scale on the x-axis. Put it there. Okay, we have part of our door ready. Still a bit tall. A door usually doesn't go up to the roof. And let's just say this is a single-story house. So the door would go maybe up to here, something. So we need another cut here. We do that the same thing as we did before. Control R, or just choose the loop cut tool from the toolbar. Put your loop here, slide it up, and put it there. Now there is something that could become a door, right? It is a bit skinnier than before. It is not the whole length or not the whole height of the wall, so we can make this into a door. And we can go on like this for more features of the house, like windows. And normally a window is at the same height of the door, the top of the door, just not as far down. So we add another loop. Control R, another loop here. Let's just put it there. This could be the height of the next window that we want to make. And you can see the loops go all around the object, even though we don't really need it at all in all of the places. Like here, we don't need two doors. We have like space for two doors now, but we only want one of them maybe. Still, this is the best way to do it for rendering, because you want to have a good topology, and the topology always means that you have rings or loops around your object that you can select easily. And then let's add something like a window over here. Let's do two more loops and just put it maybe over there. And just to be fancy and to show you how it works, go to edge mode and then alt click the edge. Just select the whole thing and move it on the x-axis. Move it on the x-axis. Oh, I'm in scale mode. See, that's the wrong mode. I want to move it. Move mode. Move it over here so the window is a bit wider. So we have a door here, or this will be our door here, and this will be our window here, and we could put another here. All right, how do we do that? How do we make these into doors and windows so that we can actually see them as such? We can push them into the object, basically, just so you have, go to face select mode, select these two for the door, and then we can go back to our extrude function that we had before, which is the E key. If you want to use the hotkeys, just push E, and then you can pull and push it around. And it always goes along the selected faces. So in this case, it is automatically found out that I want to go in the Y direction. You can see the blue line is parallel to the Y direction. And just push it in a little bit. So. And this already shows me that this is most likely going to be a door. Same thing for the window. I can just use the tool here, push it back in, and have a window. This is probably the absolutely easiest way to do this. You can see it is very, very basic. It is very, very simple. There is no frames around the door or no window pane or anything yet, but it is the first or the easiest way to push in faces so you can add some features to your object, to your model. Yeah, this is the absolute, yeah, right. I didn't show you the third thing you can do with faces and vertices and edges and objects in general. This is, of course, rotation. You have movement, scaling, and rotation. You can rotate stuff. So you can go back to object mode. In object mode, you can just grab the whole thing, as I said, as an object and move it around. So I push the hotkey G and move it around, or G and X and move it around the X-axis, just slide it back and forth. Or I can rotate it. So like I had decided I don't want to have the door looking down here, the Y-axis. I want to look it up here on the X-axis, just because I wanted to do so. So I can go to the rotate tool and spin it around, whichever way I like, and just keep it there. And what you can see, it always spins around a certain point. This is the origin point. So every object that you make has an origin point. This is the point where you first created the object. You can see it, there is a little orange dot right here. Let me just deselect it. This orange dot in the middle, there is the origin point. I can hide the overlay for the 3D cursor. Yeah, you can see it here. That's the point where everything will revolve around. So if I rotate it like this, it will always rotate around this point of origin of your object. Right mouse button to cancel, as always. And if that is a bit, let me just undo the first rotation there. If that is a bit too, it is not precise enough for you, so you want it exactly 90 degrees, you can do that as well. If you grab it and then hold the control key, you can snap it to certain angles. And if you look on the top left of my screen, you see rod and it says -90 global. This is where you can see how far you rotated the object. And for a technical build like a house, it is pretty important to get the angles right and to basically to have everything line up. So that's how you can see how much you rotate it. If you want to put it on the side, you can do that as well. You can just put it here and rotate it on the side. You can see again -90 degrees or +90 degrees or even 45 degrees, wherever you want it. There are more methods, a lot more on how to do this precisely. And if you want to know how to do that, we can get to that as well. We probably will, because that's something that you do automatically later. But for now, this is the easiest way to basically get things where you want them to be. So now we have it facing around the x-axis. You can go back here. So what else should we add? Should we add a chimney? Like put a chimney right here or here. Maybe here. There's not much geometry here yet, so let's add some. So more loops. One loop here. I push it over there. Go into edge select mode. Select this. Go to move. And move that right here. So I want a square face up here, or at least a relatively square. It doesn't have to be perfect. Then I go to face select, click this one. Now I use the hotkey E for extrusion and pull it up. This gives me a basic chimney shape. And again, we have more loops that go all around the object. This is something I had to get used to, because I want things to be efficient and I want things to be... this is all wasted geometry, right? You don't really need all that stuff. But in the end, for the renderer and for selecting things around the object, it is much, much better to have topology like this, which is all four-sided polygons. They are called quads, all quads, if possible, and go all around the object every single time. There will be lots of cases where you can't do that, like this one, for example. This just goes around the chimney, but it works. It's still a loop. Or right here, this goes up on the top of the chimney and comes back down. But try to keep it like this. This will make your life much, much easier in the end. So the chimney usually needs a hole in it, right? You want the smoke to come out. So how do we do that? There is an inset function. And it even looks like it. If you look at the icon, it looks exactly like the thing that we want to make. A hole in the middle. So you can inset, grab it, and pull it down. Or pull it up, but then you come into the limits here. So just pull it down. And you created more faces around and one face on the inside. which we can again extrude and pull down. This gives us a nice chimney thing. And you should pull it far enough down that nobody can look inside and see that face. So let me just do that here. Pull it down like that. Good enough. So this is basically what you can do with the simple editing tools in Blender. Everything else that you want to do, like starting to add more detail or starting to add color and texture to your build. Let me just do it like this so we can see it. This will, of course, take more work. A lot of more functions inside of Blender. But this is the basics. If you just want to build a simple thing and practice, this is how you do it. And yeah, if you have anything that I should add to the house, and it can be complicated, and then we can just try to work it out if you like. But if there's anything, then just let me know, and I will try to show you how it works. Otherwise, I need to come up with other things that I can show you. And you can see we didn't even touch any of this stuff here yet. There is a lot of stuff around Blender that confuses people very easily when you look at it at the first time. We didn't even touch them yet because we don't need to. We just have to use the basic tools to build our model, and we can get quite far with that without even knowing what all that complicated stuff here is. But the complicated stuff is where it gets interesting. Where you can do really cool things with a few mouse clicks and yeah, basically make your model stand out and look really good. So let me just get here. I like to have the select box open. Maybe I should talk about selection. Selection sounds like a good thing to talk about. Let's do that here. I said you can select faces like this, shift select faces like this, and alt select for rings or for loops. That's not where it ends though, there's a lot more. So if you want to select, let's say, a set of faces like this one up to here, then you would have to click, and click, because, well, you have to select them by everything single, because you can't just use the loop select. But there is, of course, a better way to do it, an easier way to do it. Well, not one, there are several ways to do this. And this has to do with modifiers again. So as I said, with shift click, you can select individual faces and add them to your selection. And you select control click to select the shortest path from one selection point to the one that you clicked. In this case, faces. One face to this face over here. That works pretty well for pretty much everything. So you have a face over here and you want to select up to here, control click, and it will just select all these. It works around loops, so you can control click from there to there, and it just selects them. It will sometimes select a weird path if you cross boundaries like this one, where the geometry is not 100% defined, where you can just take two ways to go from one point to another. So like this, if I select this one, you can see it choose from going down here and going over here, because this is easier to go here and has less faces than to go over here and have all these faces and all these faces and then come back down here. So it will always select the shortest possible path from one place to the next. Like, right, it wouldn't go up here or even zigzag around here. It will always just choose the simplest path. That's one way. Another way is, let me just deselect everything. When you start clicking outside an object, and then just pull the mouse, you will just open up a selection rectangle. Everything inside that rectangle gets selected. This is what you know from from your typical like image editing software like GIMP or Photoshop, whatever you have. You can just select things with this, and it will just select all of that. You go in vertex select mode, you can see it a bit more clearly. There we go. And there's more. Again, much more. I'll just show it to you, and you can just ignore it if you don't want it. But the thing that I do all the time is circle select mode. So you have up here you have that box, and you can say what kind of selection you want. The select box is what I did here. And what I do usually, or a lot of the time, if I have something like this and I want, let me just take this one. I want to select like these faces, all these faces here. I can do it like this. This is 3 clicks. And I even missed this one, and I missed this one. Okay, so there's a better way to do that. You can have circle select mode, which just push the C, and then you can see my cursor is has changed to a circle. Then I just click and paint. Just paint my selection. I can, with middle click, can take away from the selection. With shift click, I can add to the selection. Middle click, left click, middle click. So just add and subtract from my selection. Right click, and then I have it. So just go C, pull it down, maybe take these and subtract these. That's it. I didn't want that one, so I can shift select and take that away. Shift select this. So this is one of the ways for how we can paint a selection on an object. Just see and just pull it over there. It gets very handy if you have a very dense object, a very dense mesh, and you want to select a part at the middle. And it's very easy to do with the C circle select and then just drag it over. That's one more way to do it. So we have Alt click for loop select. We have Shift click to add or subtract from a selection. We have Control click for select shortest path. We have like the circle select. We have bounding box select, where you can just select parts. And you probably noticed when I go and use the bounding box select, it will deselect everything else. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. So if you don't, you just use Shift select and add to the selection. You can't do that. Well, yes, you can in the new version. Apparently you can. Okay, good. You can select within an object to add to the selection again here with Shift click. And there's another mode like the circle select mode that I showed before, this one. You can do, instead of circle C, you can do B like box select, which is pretty much the same as before. But in box select mode, you can just add, box, add, or middle click, subtract. It's basically two very similar things, and you will see that in some cases you will use the one like this, and in some cases you will use the other. So, because you can't see what I'm doing here when it is always open, when the toolbar is always open. Right, this is about selections. What else? Anything you are interested in? Anything that is unclear, that was too fast, and you want more detail on? Let me know. Just type it in the chat, and I will try to explain more. Otherwise, I can just, I don't know, add another window. Okay, I heard a suggestion what you could do and what we could show, and let's just do that in a moment. So right, what I did before was, oh no, I did it here. So this is a double face in extrusion backend, so you can see even two faces can be extruded and will do the same. Will do basically combine to one face. So extrude that back in. X. There we go. And then typing the X, Y, and Z keys here. This is the same thing when you scale or move face around, or anything that you are moving. You can push the X key to lock it on the X-axis, the Y key to lock it on the Y-axis, and Z on the Z-axis or Z-axis. And that works for extrusions as well. So if I choose to extrude something here, like that, maybe there is some kind of, I don't know, some kind of part of the building that just juts out here. You can say E, extrude in the Y-axis. This will not work as well for this object, of course, or the X-axis or Z-axis, and then just pull it out. Okay. So I heard windowsills. How can we add windowsills? Basically the same way as before. Just have to choose if you want to add the windowsill above the lowest point of this window right here or below it. I'm gonna add it below. Same thing as before, just loop cut around the object and face select these three, control click, and then E for extrude and pull it out. Not so far because it's the outside. On the inside I would pull it like half of the distance out, but on the outside this is enough. And that's a basic windowsill. That's how you do that. Or maybe we want to do more fancier windows. Like you have window panes inside and these wood crosses inside of the window. I'm not sure what the name is for that. We can do that as well. We had that inset operator before. Let me just call it up again. Is inset face, where you can pull stuff inside of a face. We can use that here, inset, and it will pull all the faces in here like this. So it will take all the faces that I selected into account and pull them in. You might want to have it a bit differently in this case, maybe. So like 3 separate window panes instead of 1, because this is going to give you 1 window pane. Maybe you want 3. Then you can say inset and push I again. It's a double inset. This will inset for all, also individually. So we have it like this. Then you have, we go face select mode, 1, 2, 3 windows, window panes, which we can of course extrude back in and have it like this. You can see that objects become very, very complex very, very quickly. But that's fine. This is still considered low poly. So let me just have a look. You can look down here. It says 176 vertices. That is nothing to worry about. Even in a game, you can have 100,000 of these on the screen and it will not even blink. Right, so this is not a problem at all. So, 3 window panes. And I think I talked enough. Let me just pull out these, because we have them here, why not? Just use them. There we go. So then let me briefly go into how would you add some color to it, because this is just gray and you can't really see what's going on. And you always have to rotate it just right so you get the object lighted in a way that you can see your geometry. And it might be interesting to just add a bit of color to it. And that's what Blender calls materials. So every object can have multiple materials that have different textures, different colors, different surfaces. So one material is rough on the surface, the next material has a mirror surface, and another material has like a stone, cobblestone material, all that kind of thing. You can set that up for every object as you like. And this is where we finally come here to the side panel, which is called the properties panel. The whole thing here. And there are lots and lots of tabs you can cycle through, and you should not worry about any of them right now, because this is just too much to take in at the first time you see Blender. So we want to, right now we want to concentrate on the material. We want to just to give it some color. So we go here down. This is the material setup. You can just hover over it and you see material properties. And we can say we don't have a material yet. So we should add a new material. Just do that right now. And I will call this Windows. It's the easiest thing to do. Let's just say Windows. Or let me just say window glass. That's also something you should always do. Give your objects, materials, and whatever you're editing, give them proper names so you can find them again. And I should do that for this house. Here's our outliner. This is called the outliner, where everything that you can see on your scene is listed. You can see cube is still, my house is still called a cube. I can just rename it F2, as you can do it in your file browser, and call it house. So my house has a new material, which is called window glass. I can go into edit mode again, because now I have to select the parts that I want to put the glass material on. Now it's something, you will see that something goes wrong when I do that. So you can see here, this is all of the settings I can do for this material, and this again looks very daunting, but just look at the base color for the moment. I can click on the base color and pull it up like a bluish color, because I want it to look like glass. Glass is always blue for some reason. I would make it blue. So this is blue. And it does not look blue. Why does it not look blue? Because Blender is not that simple, or that when it comes to that, because it has different modes you can look at your object in. And this here is right here on the upper right side is the viewport shading mode. This is the simplest mode, the solid mode. You can see on the right it says solid. That is the simplest and least computationally expensive mode that you can have. So it just shows you the geometry and nothing else. But it is very fast. So if you have a very complex object and you just want to get the shape right, then viewport shading solid is probably the best mode to go for. But if you want to see the colors, you have to go one mode further, which says material preview. And now, again, something goes wrong because the whole thing is blue. But again, at least it is something different from what we had before, because before it was just gray. Now it's blue. Why is the whole thing blue? We just wanted the windows to be blue. Because we only have one material. The whole object only has one material, so it can only show one color. So let's put another material in, and let's just call this one walls. And we can go back to edit mode with tab. And now we talked about selections. Another way to select things. We selected these three faces. There are more faces on the other side. These are windows as well. Let's just select them. And now I can switch the selection around. So everything that is selected becomes deselected and vice versa. So it does this. Control I, and I hit another thing that I didn't want to hit. So with Control I, you can switch around. This is selected or this is unselected. So now I switch around to everything that is not a window. Click the walls material and set assign. And this will put the walls material to all the faces that I have selected. It's assigning a material to face. Let's do that. And deselect all. Now we can see we have gray walls and blue windows. This is the basic way to add some definition to your object. Now you can see there's something happening. Let's give that door maybe some color. Let's say it's a wooden door, it's outside. Let's say it's a brown door. Add another material, new slot. So you can always say, this is a bit tricky. Let me do that again. Let me just do that again. So you can see we have two materials here, the window glass and the walls. And if I want to add a new material, I have to add first a new material slot. And this is empty. That just means there's space for another material, but there is no material in there yet. So you can choose which material you want to have in there, but there is none in there yet. That's why it looks so like stylized, like here. And to add that, I go down to new here. So we have two new buttons. The one is over there and one is down here. So this adds a new material slot. So it makes room for one more material or 5 more materials if you click it 5 times. And then in that slot, I add a new material, create a new material. This will be named like material.02. We call it door. Go to edit, select all the faces that are our door. And go to the base color again and pull it into a brownish color. I think I'm selecting the wrong things here for some reason. Let's see. Yeah, I have everything else selected for some reason. Yeah, because, you can see my mistake here. I was on the walls material and changed the color for the walls material. This is, of course, not what I wanted. So undo. Click it again. Click the door material. Because what Blender does, that's what I didn't see. What Blender does is when you click a face, it will select the material for that face. So here it will go to window glass, here it will go to wall, and this is still the wall material. So that's why it jumped up there. So let's select the door. Do that again. And have a nice brown color. Deselect everything. And what I did not do is assign it. So again, select the door, assign. There we go. Now, finally, there's that brown color for our door. And you can go on like this. You can create a new material for the roof. Let's do roof. Go up here, select the roof, select this one. Control Shift. Now I do Control and Shift and select because I want add a new selection to up to here, following the shortest path. And it spared out the chimney. That's good. Didn't know it would do that. I hoped it would do that. Okay. And the roof has what color? What color should we give the roof? Let's say some kind of reddish color. So go back to the roof material. Let's pick some reddish color and assign it to the roof. Cool. Very simple. And I guess that's the bare minimum that you should know if you want to start working with Blender. Everything else from here on is like, if you want to learn texturing, we can go into texturing. If you want to learn more modeling, then I can show you more tricks how to subdivide faces to make them look more rounded and make them look more natural and all that stuff. But that really depends on what you guys want to see, and if you still are ready for more yeah, more instructions on how to use Blender. And it's also something that we can just do in the next live stream. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you are interested in something specific that I should show you, or if this is already enough and you want to just go and fiddle around with your own models in Blender. Just let me know in the chat, and I'll see what we do next. For the moment, I will just save this. Just go File and Save. Save as, because I don't want to overwrite what I have. Of course, you should always save, as with every software. Never trust the software. It can crash at any time. Blender is remarkably stable, even in the, what is it, 2.91 alpha version. It's remarkably stable. I rarely get it to crash. And if I do, I can file a bug report and it gets fixed in like a week, if at all, and I can download the newest version. That's the good thing about Blender. It's free and open source, so you can download a new build every day and see if the bug that you reported is already fixed in that build. So let me save that. That's here. House blend. Okay. And just save. And this is how it will come up, because Blender will remember all the things that you did to your interface and how you positioned your camera and everything and your shading, and it will just come up the same way as you left it right here. Okay, Ovo says next live stream would be great. Then we should just have some comments under the video. I don't know if that is enabled. I think comments are enabled. Or just send me a Twitter message or whatever. What you want to see in the next live stream, I can just prepare a few things, or we can just go from here and see whatever happens next to this house, or just something else. Start a complete new model. Just let me know. And yeah, just Ovo says he needs to play around and try something to memorize it. And that's the thing. You have to do that. You have to just pick up Blender, do whatever you want with it, and have some fun with it. And the more you do that, the better it gets, and the faster you are later in your modeling. And you will see that the things that I showed you here are very basic, because there are so many functions that can make your life so much easier, and you can work so much quicker as soon as you basically get the hang of it, get how the Blender way works. That's what people say a lot of times. This is the Blender way of doing it. Right. So I guess then let's say this is enough for today. And let me know what you think. Let me know if we should do this again. And if you have ideas on what to do next with this format, if this is good for you, if it works for you. And yeah, I will see you in the next live stream. And just let this run for a bit more. And thank you very much for joining, for looking. And yeah, happy modeling. Bye-bye.